Have you ever eaten Doritos? Of course you have. But did you know the story of Doritos started in a garbage can at Disneyland? Of course you didn't. This is Munchables, and today we're going to be looking at the story behind Doritos and some really interesting facts. Today, Doritos is one of the most successful food brands ever. The snack makes about $1.5 billion in sales every year, outperforming most other snacks of any kind. If there was ever a cash cow of snacks, Doritos is one. But how did this all start? What's the story? Well, here's the story. The story of Doritos started with one company, one man, a restaurant at Disneyland, and garbage. In 1955, Disneyland had just opened for business in Anaheim, California. Frito-Lay at the time was a small snack company that was only called Fritos, not Lay's. The company opened Casa de Fritos, a Mexican-styled restaurant at Disneyland's Frontierland. The restaurant, unsurprisingly, was a marketing tactic by the owners of Frito to sell their signature snack, Fritos, to Disney park goers. Even though the restaurant sold regular Mexican food, it maintained a Fritos theme. Customers got free Fritos, and Fritos were added to most of the dishes sold in the restaurant. There was even an animatronic vending machine that dispensed Fritos. The vending machine was popular for featuring the peculiarly terrifying Frito Kid, asking a miner called Klondike to fetch a bag of Frito chips. Even though in today's world the Frito Kid's vending machine may scare kids away, it was quite a hit in the 50s. Come on, would this vending machine not scare you? It would certainly scare me. However, for some reason, the kids in the 60s didn't get scared by this terrifying apparition. But let's get back to the story. Casa de Fritos could make use of this vending machine, but they couldn't make their own tortillas. They had to contract the production and supply of the tortillas they used to a company called Alex Foods. And so it began. Alex Foods made tortillas and supplied Casa de Fritos. Casa de Fritos sold the tortillas and ordered more. Alex Foods made tortillas and supplied Casa de Fritos. Casa de Fritos sold the tortillas and ordered more, and on until one day. On this day, after delivering a batch of tortillas to Casa de Fritos, an unknown worker passed by Casa de Fritos garbage. He saw that the restaurant was throwing away stale tortillas that were unsold. He thought to himself, well, this is a remarkable waste of money and perfectly good tortillas. Or that's what we think he said. No one was there, after all. What we do know for sure is that he went back into the restaurant and gave the manager advice that would one day give birth to Doritos. He said, don't throw out the stale chips. It's a waste of money. Instead, you can fry them and sell them as chips. It was a bit of simple advice, but as we know, even the simplest of advice can have the most shocking outcome. Now, the management of Casa de Fritos took this advice and started deep frying the stale tortilla chips and selling them. They made a great profit from this, but it was too inconsequential to report to the Fritos company. What were they going to say? That they've found a way to cut out the waste of tortilla chips? And so what? Why would the big brass ever care about that? So they didn't report it, and they kept selling the chips. But Doritos was destined to be created. And a year later, the restaurant had a visit from the new VP of Frito-Lay, Archibald Clark West. He had dropped by the restaurant on a surprise visit and was amazed to find the fried stale tortilla chips outselling almost everything. Where others had just saw a delicious product, Archibald saw something more. He saw potential like never before, he exclaimed. This is amazing! How have we never heard of this? Now, how do we know for sure that this is what he said? Simple answer, we don't. However, we do know that he said something of the sort because he took the news back to his superiors at Frito-Lay. However, they weren't really convinced. What was the likelihood that fried stale tortilla chips would take off in the market? No one had ever done it before, and there was no reason to believe that there was a demand for it. But did Archibald give up? No, he didn't. He kept pushing, and soon he was able to get some funding from other projects that the company was working on. With this funding, he was able to make and test out the product for the market. He also added a fun new twist to it. He made extra flavors. The two flavors that he tested out were plain corn flavored and taco flavored. And it was an instant hit. So the execs put in more funding. They wanted to see where this idea would go. They wanted to see whether Archibald would make this pet project unit something worthwhile. Archibald immediately got to work and met with Alex Foods. But first thing first, he needed a name. He couldn't just push a product into the market without a name. And as Archibald knew, names are pretty important. So what would he name this snack? One day as he looked at the cook frying the chips, it immediately occurred to him. Before now, the cooks at Casa de Fritos had been selling the chips under the name Doradito, which basically means golden brown, as that was the color of the chips. Archibald figured that Doradito wasn't the easiest thing to pronounce, and he came up with something else, something that sounded fun and sweet, something that remained in the mind of buyers long after buying, something different. Doritos. And that was it, the name he went with. As expected, the snack took off big time. In the beginning, the tortilla chips were still being sourced from Alex Foods. However, in a short while, the company simply couldn't keep up with supply. Doritos were flying off the shelves. Because of Alex Foods' lack of capacity, Archibald and the top brass over at Frito-Lay made the decision to move production to a bigger plant in Tulsa. 2 years passed and Doritos kept outselling and outperforming its competitors. "It is time," said the executives of Frito-Lay. "It's time to introduce America to Doritos." And that's exactly what they did. The year 1966 is famous for many things. It's the year the Batman television series debuted on ABC. It's the year of the Vietnam protests. It's the year of the Star Trek debut on TV. And lastly, it's the year that Frito-Lay's decided to introduce Doritos to the United States of America. And that year, Doritos was rolled out nationally, and the race to the top of the American snack food chain began. Doritos took the market by storm. But before the launch, there were doubts. For one, it was the first tortilla chip to be launched nationwide. And there was no guarantee that it would be a success. After all, market execs reasoned there was a reason no tortilla chips had ever been launched nationwide. But despite this, Doritos was hugely successful in the market. It was so successful that in 1968, Frito-Lay added the taco-flavored Doritos to its lineup, and 4 years later it started selling the nacho cheese-flavored Doritos. Other flavors, like the Cool Ranch flavor, would not get added until Frito-Lay's expansion in 1980. However, with the national success of Doritos came a huge trade-off. As it penetrated markets, it gradually lost its Mexican identity. Doritos didn't mean golden little things anymore. Instead, it meant snacks, and that was it. Fortunately, with this loss came better sales. The snack was able to drive the demand outside the Southwest, where it had always been the strongest. By 1985, Archibald West had retired, but Doritos was still growing and was recording over $500 million in sales every year. By 1990, Doritos had conquered America and was trying to conquer the world. The snack was sold in every state in the United States and was being sold in 20 countries. 3 years later, it became the #1 snack in America, with annual sales of about $1.3 billion and made up to about 1/3 of Frito-Lay's sales revenue. In 1992, the company that owned the rights to Doritos undertook what may just be the costliest redesigning project in snack history: PepsiCo. Yes, Frito-Lay's had merged with another company to form PepsiCo and invested $50 million in changing the look of Doritos. The new and revamped Doritos had a stronger flavor, and each chip was 15% smaller and 20% larger. Additionally, the new chip now came in circles instead of with sharp points like the previous version. Consumers absolutely adored this version of the chips because it was easier to eat and reduced the scraps at the bottom of the Doritos bags. As Doritos grew, so did advertising capital. In the late 1990s, the snack became almost synonymous with Super Bowl advertisements. The snack even got crazier flavors. For example, there's a pure paprika Doritos for Belgium, a yogurt and mint Doritos for Turkey, and even a tuna mayonnaise Doritos for Japan. Lastly, did you know that Doritos has actually accompanied an A-list star to the Oscars? Well, in 2013, Jennifer Lawrence got an Oscar nomination for her work in the movie American Hustle. However, before the show, she ate a pack of Doritos and soiled her dress. Sadly for her, nothing could be done, so a few particles of Doritos accompanied her to the function. The growth of Doritos from a way to avoid wastage to being one of the biggest snack brands in the world could never have been predicted. But it still happened. It just goes to show that ideas are all around us, and with the right inspiration, even the most mundane things can become quite remarkable indeed. But wait, we're not done yet. While this story of the origins of Doritos is the most quoted, most written about, and most known, there's another one that isn't quite as popular. Yes, you heard that right. Doritos has 2 origin stories. What's the second one, you may be forced to ask? Well, here it is. Basically, it says that Archie West didn't in fact discover Doritos at Casa de Fritos. It says that Archibald was vacationing one summer when he bought messy fried tortilla chips from a street vendor. He tasted the chips and found that not only was it delicious, but there was also nothing like it on the market. And that's how Doritos were born. Now, regardless of what version you believe, it's safe to say that without the ingenuity of Archibald West to see potential where everyone else saw risk, we wouldn't have Doritos. Little wonder when Archibald died in 2011 at the ripe old age of 97, he asked his daughter to sprinkle Doritos on his grave. The snack meant that much to him, and it's hard to believe it has meant so much to anyone else. And there you have it, folks, the incredible story of the most unlikely discovery. If you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed making it for you, make sure you smash the like icon, subscribe to the channel, and then hit the notifications bell. That way, you'll be the first to know when other interesting videos like this get on the channel. This is Munchables, goodbye, and stay safe.